When you hear the word idol, you probably picture something almost quaint, a carved lump of stone, a golden statue in a dusty temple, and some poor ancient soul bowing down to it, and you think, thank goodness we are far too clever for that now. But that picture is exactly why you will miss it, because the gods that brought the strongest, most blessed nation on earth to its knees over and over again across hundreds of years were not crude and obvious at all. They were brilliant, they were beautiful, and every single one of them offered something you yourself desperately want, right now, today. There were 3 of them in particular, 3 names that appear again and again as Israel falls, 3 gods that a whole nation simply could not stay away from, no matter how many times it burned them. And by the time you understand what those 3 actually promised, you are going to realize that you have almost certainly bowed to the shadow of all 3 without ever once thinking of yourself as a worshipper of anything. So let us clear away the cartoon first. Israel did not wake up one morning and decide to embrace evil. Nobody does. The story you find in the Book of Kings is far more unsettling than that, because it is so recognizable. Israel kept the God who had rescued them. They just could not resist quietly adding a few others alongside him on the side as insurance. Up on the hilltops, the high places, and under the shade of every green and pleasant tree, they built their little extra altars, not instead of God, as well as God. And that is the first thing to understand about these 3 gods. They almost never asked to replace the real one outright. They asked only to be added, just a little hedge, just in case. And each one whispered a promise perfectly shaped to a hunger that has never left the human heart. The first of them promised the thing everyone chases first: more. His name was Baal, and Baal was, above all, the god of the storm and the rain, which in an ancient farming world meant he was the god of the harvest, the god of the herd, the god of whether your family ate or starved that year. Baal was prosperity. Baal was success. Baal was the good life, and the picture of him is a strong young god with a lightning bolt in his fist, master of the very weather your survival depended on. And you can feel exactly why he was so hard to resist, because Yahweh, the God of Israel, asked for trust. He asked you to obey and then wait for the rains in their season. But Baal, the people were told, could be worked. Perform the right rituals, give the right offerings up on the high place, and you could reach up and pull prosperity down out of the sky yourself. That is a devastatingly attractive offer. Not faith, but leverage. Not trust, but a technique for guaranteeing the harvest. Baal was the promise that you could secure the good life on your own terms if you were simply willing to serve him a little on the side. And this is the part we skip. The genius of Baal was never that he made people renounce God. It was that he made them hedge. There is one unforgettable moment up on Mount Carmel, where the prophet Elijah stands in front of the whole nation, and there are 450 prophets of Baal on the other side, all of them funded, remember, by a queen who loved this god. And Elijah asks the people one simple, piercing question: how long will you go limping between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is, then follow him. And the record says, the people answered him, not a word, not a single word, because they did not want to choose. They wanted both. They wanted the God of the covenant for their souls, and the God of the storm for their savings. And that is the real seduction of Baal, then and now. He never asks you to stop believing in God. He just asks to be your insurance policy, your side hustle, your quiet little technique for making sure the harvest comes in case faith alone is not quite enough. The second god is the one we most want to look away from, and we should not, because his horror is the whole point. His name was Molech, and Molech demanded the unthinkable. Molech was the god of the trade, and the price he asked was children, passed through the fire. The oldest law codes of Israel name him directly and forbid it in the plainest possible words. Do not give any of your children to be offered to Molech. And yet it happened again and again at the very heights of the nation. Even Solomon, the wisest king who ever lived, built a high place for this god on a hill just east of Jerusalem to please foreign wives. Kings after him took their own sons and daughters down into a valley on the edge of the holy city and gave them to the fire. Now sit with the logic of it, because this is what makes Molech so terrible and so modern. Molech is the god who tells you that you can buy the future you want. If you are willing to sacrifice something precious enough on the altar now, he is the god of the deal you should never make. Burn the thing you love most, and I will give you the prosperity, the power, the security you crave. He is Baal's promise of more, turned murderous, with a price tag attached that no one should ever be willing to pay, and that desperate people paid anyway. And here is the detail almost no one has ever told you, the one that should send a chill straight down your spine. That valley, the one on the edge of Jerusalem, where the children were given to the fire, had a name. In Hebrew, it was Ge-Hinnom, the Valley of Hinnom. Centuries later, a good king named Josiah tore that place apart, defiled it, and made sure no one could ever burn a child there to Molech again. And the valley, forever stained by what had happened in it, became the city's cursed and burning rubbish heap, a place of perpetual smoke and fire and worms and rot on the edge of town. And that name, Ge-Hinnom, the Valley of Hinnom, softened on the tongue over the years into a single Greek word, Gehenna. And Gehenna is the exact word that Jesus himself reaches for again and again when he wants to name the final place of judgment. When you read the word hell on the lips of Christ in your New Testament, more often than not, the word underneath it is Gehenna, the Valley of Hinnom. Think about what that means. The picture the Bible gives us for hell itself was drawn from a real valley, a real place you could walk to, where a false god once convinced God's own people to throw their children into the flames. Hell, in the Bible's own imagination, is named after what Molech did. The third god is the quietest, and for that exact reason, she is the most dangerous of all. Her name was Asherah, and unlike the thunder of Baal or the fire of Molech, Asherah came softly. She was a mother goddess, a figure of fertility and comfort and nurture, and she was worshipped not with a great dramatic altar, but with something gentle and almost lovely, a pole, a carved wooden pillar, or a living sacred tree set up beside the altar under every green tree, on every high hill. That was her symbol, and you can see how easily it slipped in. It did not feel like a betrayal. It felt like decoration. It felt like adding a little warmth, a little comfort, a softer and more nurturing presence, alongside the demanding God of the covenant. And so the poles of Asherah went up quietly all over the land, beside the proper altars, generation after generation, and nobody quite noticed the moment it became too much. It got so normal that one of the worst kings of Judah eventually took a carved image of Asherah and set it up inside the temple of God itself, right in the holy place. That is how comfort works. It does not kick down the door. It is invited in, a little at a time, as an improvement, until one day the idol is standing in the sanctuary and no one can remember letting it in. And now, the detail that makes Asherah the most unsettling of the three, because here is what the people were actually doing with her, and it is subtler than simple rebellion. Archaeologists digging in the deserts of the ancient Near East have pulled up inscriptions scratched by ordinary Israelites that appear to bless people in the name of, and I want to be careful here because scholars still argue over exactly how to read it, Yahweh and his Asherah. Yahweh and his Asherah. Now hold that carefully as the debated and remarkable thing it is. But if that reading is anywhere near right, then it tells you something devastating about how idolatry actually kills a faith. These people were not trying to get rid of God. Far from it. They were trying to keep him and give him a wife, to soften him, to pair the holy, jealous, uncontainable God of Israel with a comfortable goddess at his side and make the whole arrangement a little cozier, a little more balanced, a little easier to live with. And that is the deepest danger of all three gods, hiding in the gentlest of them. Asherah does not ask you to leave your faith. She asks you to blend it, to keep every word of it and quietly marry it to whatever is comfortable until the God who will share his glory with no one is standing in his own temple next to a pole, wondering when exactly his people decided he was not quite enough on his own. So look at the three of them lined up together, because now the pattern is impossible to unsee. Baal, the god of more, who promises you can secure prosperity as a technique if you will just hedge your bets. Molech, the god of the trade, who promises the future you want if you will burn something precious to get it. And Asherah, the god of comfort, who promises you never have to choose at all if you will simply blend the holy with the easy. Provision, the trade, comfort. Three hungers older than Israel and every bit as alive in you tonight. And here is the thing you have to be honest about. Almost no one reading this owns a statue of Baal, but a great many of us serve the god of more, quietly certain that the right technique or the right hustle is what really keeps us safe, with God kept politely on the side. A great many of us have made a private deal with Molech, sacrificing our families, our health, our integrity, the things we love most, on the altar of a success we told ourselves we had to have. And almost all of us have flirted with Asherah, keeping every word of our faith while quietly marrying it to whatever the culture around us finds comfortable, so we never have to stand out or choose or limp between two opinions in front of anyone. The gods changed their names. The hungers never did. And the same jealous, patient God is still asking his people the same question Elijah asked on the mountain. How long? Baal, Molech, Asherah, the god of more, the god of the trade, and the god of comfort, and not one of them is dead. They only changed clothes. Go and read it for yourself tonight in the Book of Kings, and watch how a whole nation kept the true God and could not stop adding the false ones until the adding cost them everything. And remember this, the Bible is not only full of people, it is full of powers and places and unseen things, buried under centuries of dust and cartoon and polite silence, waiting for someone to slow down and finally look at them straight. Stay with me, and next time we will pull another one out of the dark.